Tonight we begin Off to Africa. It starts in this book as part 5, and this is how big it is. This part of the book was written before. I published it in 1987 and went off to Africa shortly after that. The point being, there's a big hiatus between the two. So I'm just going to give you a verbal transition. After I broke my knee and I went to the hospital and I had the operation, I had a long recovery period and I had to spend the time trying to figure out how to use my leg again. So I used to go out in the backyard and hop up steps on one leg. And I would take more stones each time, and I'd get heavier and heavier stones until I could actually use the leg to hop up steps. Now I know you don't want to hear that, but that's the kind of guy I am. While I was doing that, the lady next door, Jane, who became one of my closest friends in life, was peeking out the window at me the whole time I was doing it. So I knew she was watching, so I'd start showing off for her. And the next thing you know, we got to be friends. And she had polio when she was like 12. And I'd go over and I taught her to play chess. I did a lot of things. You know, she was alone. And her story will be coming through here. But I just wanted you to know that. One of the things that happened was she asked me to teach her Zazen, which I did. And I was doing age regressions with her one night. And I just got, I got her down to about 1 year old. And I said, Jane, why don't you go back to a past life where you and I might have served together? And I shut up. And I got white-knuckled waiting for about 2 minutes. And after about 2 minutes, I heard this voice say, "Hello, I'm Clearwater." And she was an Indian girl in an Indian village somewhere upstate New York. We don't know for sure, but it seemed like that from our conversations. And I was the chief of the tribe. And boy, did that blow us away. And it started a whole new life. We ended up doing shows on television every Sunday. And here's a billboard right here, picture. I don't think you can see it. I don't think you'll be able to get it focused. And don't worry about it because it'll go on the website at some point in time. But this picture says, it was a billboard downtown right at the main intersection. Wilmington lawyer Tom Little cross-examines spirit through a trance medium about AIDS, past lives, and personal healings. Easter Sunday, 11:30 a.m., Channel 22. So if you don't think I'm weird, and this doesn't convince you I am, nothing ever will. Second thing was, I came home from work one day, and I knew I was getting divorced. I mean, I knew it for 8 years. I even stopped the grandfather's clock that I had the day I knew it, because I saw my wife's face on a TV thing when I had given a press conference, and I knew the contempt she had on her face wasn't for the issue, it was for me. And I don't have any problem with that, because I am a contemptible person when I want my way. But anyway, I came home from work one day, I walked into the kitchen, there was the 3 kids and Kay, and they all looked real serious, and I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "I went to a shrink today, and he told me you would never change." And I looked, so he said, "I'm getting a divorce." I said, "Okay, I told you that 5 years ago. What took you so long?" So that will come apart in here too. But that's all I ever had to say about it. 2 weeks later, I moved out of the house. I had already given her the house. I gave her everything I owned, and off I went. So that's enough of that. The rest is coming right out of the book. Okay? Part 5, Off to Africa. Chapter 30. Headline in the news journal papers, Off to Africa. A picture underneath of me in a judo gi, a samurai sword, and a big grin on my face, ready to go in a brand new life. After 2 years training on my new knee, I enjoyed the thrill of winning a first in the National Masters Judo Championship at age 51 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I won a third 2 years later in the National Championships in Tampa, Florida. Both times in the 71 kg weight limit, which is 155 pounds in American weight. In Tampa, I also fought 7 matches in the super heavyweight division to make sure I had some good fights. I won the first match in 37 seconds, and after that I got totally massacred on points, but no one was able to throw me, and most of them were former Olympic champions. I was keenly aware that my physical skills were no longer my strong suit. Plus, my ordinary daily middle-class life in this good old United States of America had completely lost its luster for me. I mean, I was living the most boring of all existences. I was sliding downhill fast. I respected no one, and no one respected me. I was in a state of what is known by warriors as marking time. Making your moves, but not going anywhere. I finished writing and publishing the first version of this book, which was the first half, under the name American Warriors Going for Gold. And I was becoming bored to death with my practice of law as a career. I just couldn't look anyone in the eye and tell them one more lie. It was that simple. I loved the union law, and I loved the public defender's law, but the bureaucracy of the Bar Association, coupled with the emerging requirements of political correctness required to maintain a decent law practice, truly sucked. So I quit. I made a large financial settlement in an enormous personal injury accident case and packed it all in. I moved my office home to wind it down and to write and to paint and do other creative things that I felt were worthwhile for building myself back up and building the community in general. And I totally refused to be dominated by an expected public image for how much money I was supposed to earn. To write about myself during these particular years after the war in Lebanon was just too painful. I'm the first one to admit that I was a total pain in the ass. It included a final divorce, a loss of most of my personal friends, pending bankruptcies, and constantly trying to readjust to living a single life in the same old community where I was a married man for all those years. It was totally impossible. Everyone I saw or heard from asked about Kay and the kids or reminded me of them somehow. I knew I was a total failure in the middle of the social class game. I knew for sure this time I was politically and socially kaput. I was out of the game. In 1992, I met some returning Peace Corps teachers at a New Year's Eve party. And before the night was over, I was committed to my escape plan. The very next day at work, I called the Japanese embassy in Washington, D.C. And I told them I would be available as a martial arts master, a certified teacher of English, and an accomplished trial lawyer for free if they would let me go to Japan. No dice. Why? Because, Mr. Little, your advanced age, 56, is a problem for the possibility that we may have to adopt your future health problems. That makes sense. Well, what do you think I can do? And he said, very kindly, call this number at Harvard University and ask for World Teach. I did, that very same day. It was the next call I made. World Teach sent me applications immediately with the comment, you are exactly the type you're searching for, Mr. Little. And after a long series of filling in forms, agreeing to personal investigations and being vetted, and interviews, they accepted me for a year-long training and vetting program necessary to become a volunteer teacher of English in a third world country. I was offered a choice of 12 countries. It was a brochure. I saw the word Namibia. I never heard of it before. It was a brand new democracy, and English was mandated as their new constitutional language. I thought I died and went to heaven. I selected it as first, second, and third choice, and I got it. And I had no clue where it was or where it was on the map. I could not wait to get there. I was excited about my future for the first time in many, many years. I got rid of all my furniture and personal property. I gave away my beautiful Cadillac. I quit my job at Larry Sullivan's public defender office in family court, and I shoved off for Africa with a backpack and a USMCC bag full of books. I had 2 judo gis and other goodies, plus jeans, flip-flops, and washable clothing for the long pole. A close friend of mine, Ted Cadell, a reporter for the News Journal papers, convinced me to take a small handheld tape recorder along with me to keep a running diary of my experiences so I could write another book someday. I waited until after our initial meeting at the ICAM's Catholic Mission to start using it. By the way, that little ICAM's, that's the way you talk over there. Only it's not English, just the clicks. I finally started making tapes shortly after I arrived up at my duty station while I was at the Guinea Fowl Inn on the Caprivi Strip in the north of Namibia, close to my duty station. It was a long plane ride from Windhoek to a remote field full of corn stalks on the Caprivi Strip. They bumped to a stop, dumped my bag out, and pointed to a tar road and said, "Go that way." That's how I arrived at my new home in Africa. One thing I knew as I looked around, I got my wish for the hardest job in the hardest place. Boy, was I out in the bush, a tarred road. Yikes. Anyway, I looked down the road and I saw a cop car coming. It did a U-ey, I got in it, and the rest is the story. Anyway, here are my first tape-recorded impressions. In the raw, just as I recorded them, I didn't change any words. And I talked into my recorder at the end of my lonely days. And I spoke no local languages, so my audience is who I would picture in my mind as I was speaking. The recorder was my only friend for many, many months. And so we'll begin. Tape 1. Playfully pushing the button, tentatively, turning it over to see if the tape was spinning, I began. I am whipped, really whipped. Everybody I suspect thinks I'm a complete asshole. I know they like me, but they think I'm losing it. And I heard the word crazy just one too many times. I published my book, The American Warriors Going for Gold, outlining in detail my spiritual and personal experiences in America. My family and my friends absolutely hated it. I did 7 live channeling shows featuring my friend Jane with her eyes closed, speaking while totally asleep on a couch on local Sunday morning television stations. I insisted to everyone everywhere that I knew the cure for AIDS. My wife had enough of my bizarre attitude about talking to ghosts from the past and filed for divorce. My kids had enough. I could see in their eyes they were very disappointed with me as their father. The only true friend I actually had left was Jane, my new friend next door, my neighbor. I had a good job for 6 years as a defense attorney in the public defender's office in family court, representing the wildest bunch of hooligans in the state of Delaware. It was a good job as jobs go, always defending the underdog, challenging, but ritualistic, boring. The crimes, the clients, and the support staff were repetitious. They fit similar patterns day after day and week after week. Finally, one morning, I heard the alarm go off at 7 a.m. as it had for 6 straight years. I looked at my face in the mirror and it hit me like a bullet right through the brain. I gotta get the fuck out of here. I'm gonna die here. I gotta find something else to do with my life. I knew I'd become a total loser. I was so embarrassed, so mortified, I couldn't believe it happened to me, and I began crying. And I'll continue in the next chapter.